How's it going, everyone? It is National Signing Day. This is our recruiting coverage here at Touchdown Alabama. I am the Director of Recruiting for TDA. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Subscribers, hit the notification bell, be notified to drop content on our YouTube channel. Today, I'm here to provide a full breakdown of the Crimson Tide's 2025 recruiting class, those who have signed to play for the Crimson Tide in the future. Things are a little bit different on the recruiting trail for several different reasons. One of those reasons is the fact this is the first full recruiting cycle for the Crimson Tide under Akylin Dear, and things were a little bit different, if I had to say so myself. Just looking at the flow of the football season, typically during the Nick Saban era in Tuscaloosa, there are multiple official visits, a long list of official visits, probably like 5 to 6 on average throughout the football season. Akylin Dear didn't do a lot of that during the football season, but a lot of this 2025 recruiting class for the Crimson Tide were locked in during the summer months. So the Crimson Tide's June, July, August, early August, that recruiting success basically powered this 2025 recruiting class. We're going to talk about it on this breakdown today. There are some other things also to keep in mind when it comes to changes in the recruiting landscape. Another one of those changes is that guys signed today did not sign the traditional national letter of intent. That is thrown out the window. The guys today actually signed a financial aid agreement and a revenue share contract. If you guys have been following the flow of college football, we know that NIL is a huge part of college football now. That is players using their name, image, and likeness to make revenue and to gain money and interest from different companies and so forth and so on. There's another stream of revenue that's going to be generated for college student athletes now. They're going to have an opportunity to get a share of the revenue from that the NCAA gets for putting on all of these sports. So basically they're going to get more money, and that is why they are signing revenue share contracts and financial aid agreements instead of the traditional national letter of intent. But to move forward on this breakdown, like I said earlier, we want to give a full breakdown of the Crimson Tide's 2025 recruiting class and why this is one of the top recruiting classes in the country. Akylin Dear and his coaching staff did a great job in their first year securing a great class that stretches across the country in different directions, getting guys from different parts of the country to come to Tuscaloosa in the future. I'm going to begin this breakdown with the Crimson Tide star-studded 5-star quarterback Keelon Russell out of Duncanville High School in Texas. Easily one of the best quarterbacks in the 2025 recruiting class. The first thing I think about and I start to evaluate when I'm looking at a quarterback prospect is his ability to make all of the throws. And when you take a look at Russell's film, you see all the throws. You see the deep ball. You see him hitting the hitch route, the underneath route. You see him hitting the out route. You see him hitting them in different circumstances. You see him getting pressure. You see him rolling out. You even see him basically getting almost tackled and throwing the football. So you see that he has great arm strength and he is consistent. That is the next thing I look at. Can you make all the throws and can you consistently do them? That is the mark of a great quarterback. If you're going to be a great quarterback at the next level, if you want to be remembered as a transcendent signal caller, you got to make all of the throws in different situations and clutch time. And Keelon Russell has the ability to do that, and he has shown that he can do it on a consistent basis. That is why he has won multiple state championships with Duncanville High School, and that is why he is right now in the mix of trying to win another one as a senior for the Panthers. When you take a look at Russell, you're looking at a 6'3", 6'4", 190-pounder, a guy who can escape the pocket, make some plays with his feet. But I think the thing that he's starting to turn heads with, has continued to turn heads with throughout his senior season, is his ability to throw the football and get it to his weapons. He has gotten football to some very talented receivers at Duncanville this season, including Decorian Moore, the #1 wide receiver in the 2025 class. So this is a guy who's used to having a lot of talent around him. And you know Akylin Dear and the Crimson Tide are going to try their best to give him some talented receivers to play with them throughout his time in Tuscaloosa as well. And when you take a look at Russell's game as well, you see when you look at his stat sheet, he has thrown for more than 3,000 yards. He's only thrown 2 interceptions as well, compared to 52 touchdowns as a senior. That is mind-blowing to throw only 2 interceptions. So you know he has the ability to take care of the football as well. So the Crimson Tide faithful should be very excited for their future QB1 for a long list of reasons, because this guy is going to be very exciting to watch in the future. Now we're going to talk about Dijon Lee, a 5-star defensive back out of California at 6'4", 190 pounds. has that frames that college football coaches are going for at the moment. They're looking for those long, lengthy, athletic corners, guys who have those long arms, long wingspan, guys who can make plays on the football no matter where they are, because they have like this huge catch radius and it's just huge cover radius because they are so long. I think that is why Dijon Lee and guys like him with that type of frame are going to stay at the top of recruiting boards when it comes to college football. When you take a look at Lee's film, there's so much to like. One of the first thing that jumps out is his ability to get to the football. You're looking at a guy who gets to the football very, very quickly. See ball, get ball. That's what you see a lot on his film. You also see his ability to track the football very well and close on it and make plays on the football. When you see him tracking the football on those interceptions, you see him catching interceptions in a variety of ways. You see him coming down. You see him having to basically track the ball in the air and go a little bit further than the wide receiver is because the quarterback looked like he overthrowed it. You see him intercepting passes that were underthrown. You see him catching a variety of interceptions in a lot of different ways, and you also see him turning those interceptions into scores sometimes. You see him on the kick return. You see him making plays on special teams. So you see this is an athletic playmaker who the Crimson Tide are going to get on the back end. But when it comes to the cornerback position, when you talk about a guy who could come in and make an immediate impact, I think Dijon Lee has the potential to do that with this athletic ability, but it's all going to come down to technique. That is why Xavier Brown got on the field. Of course, Xavier Brown had the athleticism. Of course, he had the ability to make plays on the field. When you take a look at Xavier Brown's Matter Day film, that guy had teeth shape. If I had my son wanted to play cornerback, I'm turning on Xavier Brown's film because his technique was super impressive. And I knew while watching his technique that, this guy is a guy who could come in and make an immediate impact in Tuscaloosa. If Lee can do the same, he can make an immediate impact in Tuscaloosa as well, but it all depends on that. But the athleticism, the ball tracking skills, the size, the frame, it is all there for the 5-star cornerback out of California. Now we're going to turn our attention to another 5-star the Crimson Tide have signed in this 2025 recruiting class, and Michael Carroll, who spent his senior season at the IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. You're talking about a massive 6'6", 300-pound plus offensive lineman who pulls with reckless abandonment. When you take a look at his guy's film, if you are an offensive line guy, if you're a physical person who likes football and just likes the gritty part, the nastiness that comes with football, you're going to like Michael Carroll's film because it is a lot of that. There's a lot of him pulling, and you do not want to be in the 6'6", 300-pounder's way when he's pulling and coming down the track, because he's like a train coming to knock you out off the track, because he's just that physical when it comes to pulling and making a way for his running back as a lead blocker. This is something that he seems to take pride in. He seems to love being this nasty, physical offensive lineman. So I think he has a bright future in Tuscaloosa because of the athleticism that he displays. He, like I said, he's an athletic 6'6", 300-pounder because he actually has some experience playing on the defensive side of the football. Before transferring to IMG Academy, he played a lot on the defensive side of football in Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure playing at IMG Academy allowed him and gave him an opportunity to play against some of the best high school football players in the country, because IMG Academy does have that national schedule. So Michael Carroll, huge, massive get for the Crimson Tide in their offensive line coach, Chris Kapolovic. Next up is Akylin Dear, the 4-star running back out of Quitman High School in Mississippi. One of the more explosive running backs in this 2025 recruiting class. When you take a look at his film, you see this is a guy who explodes into the open field, and he's hard to catch once he accelerates. The guy with quick acceleration with explosiveness. I think he's more of a downhill back. When you take a look at his film, you don't see a lot of him being super twitchy. You see him getting north and south really, really quickly. You see him hitting a hole and being able to accelerate and also break some tackles with some great strength. I've had an opportunity to see Keelon Dear in action a couple of times throughout his high school career at Quitman High School. One time was when Quitman took on Meridian High School, when Meridian had the Crimson Tide, now freshman running back and former 4-star running back Daniel Hill at their disposal. So we saw the two future Alabama running backs go at it and both put on the show and basically show what made each special. You saw Daniel Hill with the ability to be a power back, ability to catch the football out of the backfield. field. But you see Akylin Dear with the ability to get free with that explosiveness, accelerate, and just get north and south very, very quickly because he is that type of back. And I think a lot of people are not going to talk about him in that way, but that is what I have seen from him. He's a guy in my mind who's just a guy who is a tenacious runner, explosive, going to fight for extra yards. He's going to be a guy who's going to be able to easily pick up 10, 15 yards, big game, and explode into the open field. You're not going to see a lot of times where he's like crossing the field or just blowing people away with that type of running, the elusive running back style. That is not his style, in my opinion, from my evaluation, what I have seen from him on film and in person. That is the type of back Alabama is getting in Keelon Dear, a guy who's going to be tenacious and a very explosive runner. Lotzeir Brooks is the next guy I want to talk about, and Brooks is speed. If you are looking for a guy who has that Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, game-breaking, elite, crazy, game-breaking type of speed, you're going to want to hear about Lotzeir Brooks, the 4-star wide receiver out of New Jersey, who basically has broken every receiving record for the state of New Jersey, whether that is receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Has more than 60 receiving touchdowns, more than 4,000 receiving yards throughout his high school career at Millville High School in New Jersey. And he's a guy who just destroys angles, makes defenders, I'm pretty sure, really upset that they have to go up against him because speed kills, and he shows it. He's a guy who can score in so many different ways. He's a guy who can score whether it's jet sweep, him getting the football right out of his quarterback's hands and being able to be explosive and get into the end zone. Whether you're throwing the ball deep, he's getting behind the guy. He's able to do that. You see him being able to create separation with that type of speed. Of course, the biggest concern with guys who have that type of speed is, hey, can this guy run routes? I think that's going to be the thing that people are going to evaluate and try to see if Lotzeir Brooks can do that in separation by running effective that fit within an offense. That is the biggest determining factor if a guy can be explosive on the football field and be productive at the next level with that type of speed. If they are able to run routes, they are able to do that. So that is the guy I would pay attention to if you're looking for a breakout wide receiver with crazy type of speed. But I think the thing that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to Lotzeir Brooks is his athleticism and his vertical. Although he's only about 5'9", 5'10", this is a guy who can climb the ladder and go and get the football. Similar to Jalen Waddle. Waddle has that similar type of height. I think he's a little bit thicker in terms of his frame than Lotzeir Brooks is, but he's a guy who could climb up and go get the football. He can actually dunk a basketball as well. It wouldn't surprise me if Lotzeir Brooks can do the same. So he has this impressive vertical to go along with that elite speed. So Alabama getting a speedster, a game-breaking type of athlete, and Lotzeir Brooks, and a 4-star wide receiver out of Millville High School in New Jersey. The Tide also have picked up a signature from 4-star linebacker Luke Metz out of Georgia, out of Mill Creek High School in Georgia. 6'2", more than 200 pounds. Looks like a linebacker. When you take a look at this guy, when you see him in person, you're gonna say, yo, that guy is a linebacker. He has the frame of a linebacker. He has the perfect frame in the way that college coaches are going after linebackers at the moment. They're going away from these big, bulky, strong linebackers. Those guys are in the past. Now we're looking at more athletic, leaner linebackers, and Luke Metz is one of those guys who's going to be an inside linebacker, fitting that role that Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson, and Justin Jefferson currently play for the Crimson Tide. And I think he's going to fit in that role well, because when you look at his film, this guy is not afraid to meet a running back in the hole, can drop back in coverage. He has that physicality, like I said, to meet the running back in the hole and make effective tackles, but he also has the ability to be comfortable when he's dropping back in coverage. He has the versatility in his game to possibly rush from the edge. So hey, maybe if the Crimson Tide need him as a wolf linebacker, he possibly could do that with the versatility that he brings to the game. So the Crimson Tide are going after more hybrid, versatile linebackers. I think that is why Luke Metz is a really good get for the Crimson Tide. During this last season at Mill Creek High School, he was able to flash some athleticism, played on the offensive side of football a little bit at tight end. I think he caught a touchdown like almost every game for Mill Creek High School during his senior season, just showing off his ability to catch the football and just be an athletic football player. So I think this is another good get for the Crimson Tide at the linebacker position. Just just fitting that perfect mold that they're looking for at that linebacker position. I think he is going to fit right in with guys who are going to be there next season. I think Deontay Lawson, John Campbell are most likely moving on. Campbell for sure, Lawson we'll have to see. When you take a look at that inside linebacker room, guys, the younger guys like Sterling Dixon, Justin Okonkwo, you also can put Justin Jefferson in there. I think he has an opportunity to come back most likely as a grad transfer. I think Luke Metz will fit right in with that group. Alabama has picked up one of the top edge prospects in its 2025 recruiting class in Justin Hill out of Ohio, getting him over Ohio State. And that was a very, very tight race, even going back to the day that Hill verbally committed to the Crimson Tide. He said he made that decision basically that day before he announced it, because it was so close between Alabama and playing in his home state of Ohio, playing in his home state and playing for the Ohio State Buckeyes. When you take a look at Hill, he is a wolf linebacker. He's going to be a wolf linebacker for the Crimson Tide, but he's similar to Metz. He has that versatility. You see that this is a guy who can play rushing from the edge, which is where the Crimson Tide like to play their wolf linebacker position. They rush from the edge at times. They defend the run. They get after the quarterback, but they also drop back in coverage, which is why Quay Russaw has been able to pick up a couple of interceptions this past season. I think Justin Hill is going to fit right into that similar type of role. When you take a look at his film, you see his ability to get past an offensive lineman using his arms, using his hand movement, and being able to get to the quarterback. That shows me that this is a guy who has been trained to get after the football. A lot of times you see a lot of guys who have been training, have great arm movement. Sometimes they overthink. They think too much when they're trying to get to the offensive lineman. This is a guy you can tell he's confident in his hand movements and his arm techniques, that he's able to quickly get to the football. He's also got a lot of strength. You're going to see him basically beat the double teams at times, split the double teams even to get to the quarterback. You're going to see him also have very active hands in terms of getting to the football and knocking it out of a quarterback, running back's hands, whoever has the football, knocking the football away from the ball carrier, which is huge. You know, Kane Womack, the Crimson Tide defensive coordinator, really loves turnovers. He really prides himself on getting the football from the opponent's offense and putting it back into Nick Sheridan and Akylin Dear's offense's hands. So Justin Hill's going to fit right in terms of being able to create turnovers. Like I said, he has the potential to be a versatile linebacker if the Crimson Tide see fit that, hey, this 6'3", 200-pound guy could possibly be an inside linebacker for us. I think it wouldn't be no problem for a guy like Justin Hill, who is able to play sideline to sideline to fit into that role, but he also has that potential to be a wolf linebacker, because I feel like Kane Womack's defense just opens the door for that linebacker position. You can sign with the Crimson Tide as a linebacker and possibly play a multitude of position at that linebacker role. So Justin Hill is a really, really good get for the Tide. I think he's one of my favorite players in this class for Alabama. The tight end position is very, very interesting for the Crimson Tide during this 2025 recruiting cycle for several different reasons. And now I'm going to talk about two of the Crimson Tide tight end signings in this class. But when you take a look at the way that Alabama used tight ends this particular football season, Alabama should have no problems recruiting tight ends in the future if Alabama's offense is going to look like this under Nick Sheridan and Akylin Dear. Josh Cuevas, Robbie Oots, and CJ Dupree got the football a lot compared to the tight end position under Nick Saban over the last couple of seasons. Of course, Amari Noblet got the football quite a bit during Nick Saban's last football season, but three tight ends got the football, and all of them have scored this football season in critical games they were targeted in this 2024-2025 football season. So I think the tight end position is going to be a position where Alabama has no problem recruiting in the future. And I think they had no problem recruiting it here in this 2025 recruiting cycle, picking up two very impressive prospects. First, you look at Kaleb Edwards, a 6'6", 240-pound tight end out of California, a guy who's your traditional build when it comes to the tight end position, a big guy who can present a big target and go up and get the football. Going to be a mismatch for most linebackers, a mismatch for most defensive backs, because he's going to be the big, bulky, long tight end, a guy who explodes out of his stance when he's in a three-point stance to get into a route. Also is a decent route runner for a guy his size. I think he's just a solid get for the Crimson Tide and just fits that mold of a CJ Dupree, of a Josh Cuevas, in terms of them being solid targets, big targets, guys who are difficult to bring down. I think he's continuing to put on more muscle. I think he's going to be a guy who fits right in at that tight end position with the Crimson Tide. The guy who I really like at that tight end position for the Crimson Tide is the other four-star tight end signee in Marshall Pritchett at 6'6", 220 pounds. the Georgia product is fun to watch. If I had to describe his game in a very, very simple fashion, he's fun to watch for a multitude of reasons. One of those reasons is his ability to produce after the catch. He doesn't produce after the catch like your typical tight end. You are thinking you're looking at a wide receiver when you see the way that this guy works after the catch and being able to get to the end zone. You also see him being able to run effective routes. See him line up in several different positions within the offense. You're going to see him line up out wide as a wide receiver a lot. You're going to see him line up as a slot wide receiver. You're going to see him everywhere within that offense that he played in during his high school football season. So I think that is why he is so impressive, and I think he's going to be exciting to watch at the next level if Alabama plans to continue to use the tight end position the way that they used it during Akylin Dear's first season. You saw Josh Quavers lined up as a out wide. You saw CJ Dupree do that. You saw Robbie Oops do that as well, and I think Marshall Pritchett is going to be able to do that at a very, very high level because he is explosive. He's fast for a guy 6'6", 220 pounds, and that is why he's so effective after the catch. So Marshall Pritchett, similar to Justin Hill, one of my favorite recruits in terms of their game because I really respect what they bring to the table, and I think they have something in their game that's very, very unique when you talk about those two guys. There are multiple guys who I feel the same way about in this recruiting class, but Pritchett and Hill definitely are guys who belong in that conversation. Now we're going to talk about Darrell Johnson, a 2025 four-star linebacker out of Georgia who the Crimson Tide were able to pick up in Akylin Dear's first recruiting cycle. When you take a look at Johnson, hybrid linebacker, I think he fits that mold of a Jahad Campbell in terms of what he's able to do as an athletic guy who's going to look really, really comfortable in pass coverage. When you took a look back at Jahad Campbell's final season at IMG Academy, you see him look right at home when he's dropping back in coverage as a linebacker. I think Darrell Johnson looks right at home as well. He's a guy who's going to be able to be a hybrid linebacker, who's going to be able to play sideline to sideline. He's going to be able to play standing up. He's going to be a guy who's going to be able to get to the football. He's going to be a guy who the Crimson Tide, in my opinion, are going to love as an inside linebacker. But like I say, I think this is just the way that Kane Wommack's defense is designed and the way that Alabama has recruited. All of these guys are versatile. All of these guys can see themselves playing inside, see them rushing from the edge. They have done it at the high school football level, so they have some familiarity with the different positions and the different alignments when it comes to being a linebacker within a defense. And I think Kane Wommack's defense just gives athletic players and athletic prospects an opportunity to prosper within it. And I think Darrell Johnson is going to be one of those guys who will have that opportunity to do so. Alabama is signing an impressive offensive line haul to go along with this group. Is Jackson Lloyd, 6'6", 280-pound offensive lineman who is your prototypical offensive lineman when you're talking about length and frame. You want a long guy, you want an athletic guy, a guy who's light on his feet, a guy who's agile. That is who Jackson Lloyd is, an athletic prospect who actually played some basketball during his time in high school. So when you're 6'6", 280, and you can run up and down a basketball court and you can dunk the basketball, you know you are an impressive athlete, and Jackson Lloyd is that impressive athlete. He's a guy who is, like I said, agile, knows how to make himself wide when it comes to pass protection, a guy who blocks in space really well. You're going to see him get to the second level. When you watch his film, you're going to see him be able to be a lead blocker and block those guys who are at the second level when it comes to linebackers, and also get to that third level and just out in the open field and be able to block defensive backs at times. You're going to see a play in his film here that we are showing you guys where he basically caught the football out of the backfield. I think it was a offensive line throw. I think it was a trick play where he was supposed to throw the ball, but he actually took off, and he didn't look bad. He didn't look horribly out of position as an offensive lineman running the football. So I think Alabama is getting an athletic, agile, impressive 6'6", 280-pound offensive lineman in Jackson Lloyd, who is joining an offensive line for the Crimson Tide that is really impressive. Like I said, when you take a look at this class, you also have Micah DeBose, a four-star offensive lineman, an in-state kid the Crimson Tide were able to pick up out of Theodore High School in Alabama. And I've seen DeBose play a couple of different times. He is probably one of the more versatile offensive lineman prospects who the Crimson Tide are going to sign in the 2025 recruiting class because he has experience lining up at tackle. He has experience lining up at guard. I think guard is going to be his true position. I think he's a guy who plays with a lot of physicality, but he also plays with a lot of effort. This is a guy who never lacks any effort, no matter how many snaps he plays, no matter what position he lines up at. Whenever I have seen Micah DeBose play, it has never been a play where he is showing a lack of effort. I'm talking about blocking until the whistle is blown. I'm talking about making sure his guy is completely out of the play. I saw him play when he was at Viger. I saw him play when he was at Theodore. There were times where the play was nowhere near him because basically he took his guy all the way to the other side of the field. Out of the play, just tenacious in the effort that he has shown. You can't teach that. That's the guy who wants to play football. He's passionate about the game, and it shows in his play and in the way that he attacks the game and the way that he plays. So I really like DeBose for several different reasons because of that 6'5", 300+ pound frame. Of course, he has that. That is kind of like the marker. That is what you got to have if you want to be recruited as an offensive line. You have lineman. You have to be long. You have to be wide. You have to be a guy who's athletic, who can move that big frame. He can do that, but that tenaciousness, that effort that he plays with, I feel like you can't teach that. You can't buy that in a lot of ways. So I like what DeBose brings to the table from that perspective. Another guy who I want to talk about, he's a guy who in his 2025 recruiting class for the Crimson Tide, a guy who I'm going to put in that conversation for a guy who I really like because of his game. And that guy's London Simmons. He's going to lack the length of your 6'3", 6'4" defensive lineman, defensive tackle prospect, but he's 6'2", barely 300 pounds. But he's a guy who has an explosive first step. He's like a ball of power because of the power that he plays with. He has a lot of strength. He's a guy who's going to be able to use his hands to get to the football to go along with that strength. Active hands as well. Quick off the football, like I said, that explosive first step. And when he gets his hands on the quarterback, they are not getting away from him. Similar to Tim Keenan in my mind, that is the guy who I would compare him to in terms of Alabama's current defensive line. And this is a guy, Tim Keenan, when you take a look at him, a lot of people were not big fans of Tim Keenan when he came from Ramsey High School. A lot of people criticized him because he didn't have the length of those other interior defensive linemen the Crimson Tide were going after at the time. But what he did have was power. He did have the ability to get to the football and have a lot of strength. And once he was able to get into the weight room, transform his body, he was even more effective and be able to be a contributor for the Crimson Tide for the last 2 seasons. I put London Simmons in that category. A guy who doesn't have that length, but he has power, he has strength, and he uses it to his advantage along with a very quick first step for a guy his size. So I really like London Simmons because of his game, because of the way he plays. He's just fun to watch. Alabama has pulled in Ivan Taylor in his class, a 4-star defensive back out of Florida, who is the son of former Pittsburgh Steelers defensive back and Super Bowl champion Ike Taylor. Ivan plays with a lot of confidence. That confidence jumps out when you watch his film. He's comfortable at safety. I think he can play corner. When you take a look at his technique, you see him be able to play from the line of scrimmage, but he's most likely going to be a safety at the next level when it comes to the Crimson Tide. You take a look at the way that this guy moves around in the secondary, great hip fluidity, the way he's able to change directions and get to the football. Seems like he always is in a position to make a play on the ball, whether it is catching an interception or whether it is knocking the football down. I really like the way he's able to roam around the secondary and move effectively. When you're watching Ivan Taylor, it almost looks like there is no wasted steps when he's in coverage. It seems like every step has a purpose. It has a purpose for him to get to the football, and it basically gets him to the football. And you watch this film and see like every step has put him in perfect position to make a play on the ball. So I really like the way that he is able to roam around the secondary when he is playing in pass coverage. Will come down and be effective against the run. He is a guy who can make tackles in open space. He's not afraid to make tackles because, to be honest, a lot of defensive backs, cornerbacks, they're smaller guys. They're not guys who are the biggest guys at times. And a lot of times in high school, I've seen the best. Some of the best cornerbacks and safeties that do not want to tackle at the high school football level. When you look at Ivan Taylor, I wouldn't put him in that discussion. When you take a look at what he brings to the table, Taylor is a 6 foot, 180 pound defensive back of the Crimson Tide. Are lucky to have flipping him late from Michigan, was committed to Notre Dame as well. So he is a guy who has come a long way in his recruitment, flipping multiple times, ultimately landing with the Crimson Tide. The Tide also have picked up a signature from Chuck McDonald, a 4-star defensive back out of Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, California. I think I need to have a conversation with the Mater Dei defensive backs coach because similar to Xavier Brown, Chuck McDonald has very impressive technique. A guy who doesn't open gate too fast, keeps his keeps his body square to the line of scrimmage as long as possible. A guy who knows how to run with wide receivers, turns his head at the right moment, making sure he gets his head around, comfortable in coverage. Of course, that shows confidence when you're able to turn your head around. Usually when a guy is not turning his head around, it usually comes from a lack of confidence. To be honest, they're afraid that they are going to get beat. I think Xavier Brown came in with a lot of confidence, and I think he grew up a lot in that Georgia game, because a couple of times in that game before that last interception, he wasn't getting his head around. He was in perfect coverage. He was in perfect position because he has that great technique, which is why he was on the field. The moment he turned his head around, catches the interception that seals up the game. So similar to Xavier, Chuck McDonald has great, impressive technique from a cornerback perspective at 6 foot and 185 pounds. He's a sleeper in my opinion to possibly make an early impact for the Crimson Tide in this 2025 recruiting class. Alabama has several pieces in this class who may not get a lot of love when it comes to rankings and ratings across multiple recruiting sites, but they are some nice pieces in this 2025 recruiting class. And Abduall Sanders is one of those kids at 6'2", 220 pounds. The game of football is constantly changing and is consistently getting a little different over the last couple of seasons or so. Teams are going to pass the football. It's simple as that. At the NFL, college, even high school, you see some dynamic offenses at times with the way that the quarterback is able to play in today's game at high school. There's some impressive quarterbacks who are ready to play at the next level as soon as they get there. Just take a look at college football, Nebraska, just some of the teams who were able to play with a freshman quarterback and quarterbacks who were productive. Florida as well, and DJ Lagway. So you're going to need linebackers who can play in coverage. Abduall Sanders can. He's a guy who's comfortable there. He's a guy who seems to have a great feel for where a play is going and where the ball is going by watching the quarterback and roaming around the secondary when he's dropping back in coverage as a linebacker, basically. So Abduall Sanders really thrives in that aspect, but he also is an effective tackler. A guy who you don't see a lot of big hits when you watch this film, but what are you seeing? You're seeing him blitzing effectively. You're seeing him getting into the ball carrier and being an effective tackler. You see him bringing his pads. You see him bringing his arm. You see him rapping. You see him rolling. You see him being an effective tackler in space. So Abduall Sanders is a nice piece for the Crimson Tide in his 2025 recruiting class based on his potential, based on his ability to be comfortable dropping back in coverage as a linebacker and also getting to the football, making those nice effective tackles. I think that's something that gets overlooked at times, and I think it's going to continue to be a valuable aspect. If you can get a guy to the ground, it's football, as simple as that. Sometimes it's as simple as that. If you're able to get a guy to the ground and effectively do it, making sure stopping him from progressing forward, that's a good sign. So I like Abduall Sanders because of those couple of different reasons. I think he's a guy who has a lot of potential in this 2025 recruiting class for the Crimson Tide, and I think Kane Womack's defense allows a linebacker like him to flourish. So I think he's a good kid for the Crimson Tide here in this 2025 recruiting class. We can take a look at some other guys who are going to fly under the radar. Also to take a look at a guy like Waldrep, a 2025 consensus 3-star out of Central Phoenix City High School in Phoenix City, Alabama. He's a guy who Akylen Dear and in his Alabama staff came into Tuscaloosa and said that they were going to continue to recruit this guy. Nick Saban recruited him when he was head coach of Alabama. Akylen Dear, the moment that he came in, he did this with Micah DeBose too. He said, yo, I'm going to continue to recruit this Alabama legacy because of his 6'6", 300 pound plus. Of course, like I said, if you're an offensive lineman, if you want to play at the next level, being 6'6" and being 300 pounds definitely helps. But Waldrep is a strong guy with a strong punch, a guy who is able to be an effective pass blocker. I feel like he's one of the best pass blocking offensive linemen in the country, and he has been just consistently productive during this season at Central Phoenix City, during his career at Central Phoenix City High School. I like Waldrep. I think he's a guy who is going to have some potential to possibly make some noise when it comes to Alabama offensive line in the future. He's a guy I think you definitely should watch out for, because I think he's going to be a kid who's just going to do everything right, just based on what I've seen from him, based on what I have been able to look at when looking at his film, and also watching Central Phoenix City play against Carver High School a little bit earlier in the 2020-4 high school football season. So Waldrep is another guy I would pay attention to in this 2025 recruiting class for the Crimson Tide. That'll wrap up our National Signing Day breakdown for the early signing period. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was the early signing period. I think that is something to keep in mind. Of course, when it comes comes to recruiting in this early signing period, since it has been introduced into the recruiting space, majority of recruits sign during the early signing period, but it's going to be a traditional signing period in February. Some guys are going to sign as well. The Crimson Tide have benefited from guys pushing back their commitments and pushing back their signings to past the early signing period to February in the past. So we'll see how that plays out for Alabama in this particular recruiting cycle, with Keelon Dear and his staff trying to close out their first recruiting cycle with a bang. But thank you guys so much for joining me today and watching this breakdown. As always, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button before you leave. I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.